There's very strong social and rush leadership in the chapter, but there's also a lot of apathy within the chapter as well, especially within the newly initiated members. How many of you are experiencing that problem right now with the guys that just initiate? It's getting hard to get them involved. Can I see raising hands? Okay. So a pretty good many of you. They also do not distribute the garnet and gold to either new members. The chapter is on probation from the international fraternity and the university on a yearly basis. So that means they hear from me a lot. The chapter held a health inspection on their house each of the last 5 years. And they're not allowed to vote at the international convention due to financial issues, which can also be contributed to the apathy problem. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be working through this scenario and how we can help lay out the strategic plan for the Top Talk chapter moving forward. I'm going to hand this over to Jeff to help lead us in this.
Thank you. So, just sitting here reading through it, I didn't write this scenario, but this actually strikingly similar to my chapter when I came on staff in '96. It's a little scary. Somebody in here, we role played yesterday, the social guys in the house saying we don't want to do all this work, and I was playing the part, well, it helps keep you off probation when you're doing all these things. Kind of a similar situation these guys are dealing with. I actually, as an undergraduate, had the distinct honor of being pledge master after I was SMC, and I had a group of 6 guys in the chapter who decided they didn't like the pledge class president. They made that decision in the 14th week because we, of course, ran a 15-week pledge program because, of course, they had to earn their way into the chapter. Wrong thing to do. It didn't work. It led to this. Going to the pledge class president the 15th week, telling him that, or 14th week, telling him he's just been nuked. The guy was convinced for about 3 hours that it was a joke, that we were just messing with him. It was not a good situation. So when you're talking about what the long-term needs are culturally for a chapter, a keynote address yesterday on culture, it all starts with this: how you treat your pledges, how you bring them into the chapter. So, you guys taking a look at this, what are some of the big standouts that, as a chapter, you guys probably would want to set goals around? What are some good goals for these guys in this chapter? Shoot.
Decrease apathy.
Okay, so you want to decrease apathy, all right.
More objective bid process, because you have a 65% retention rate.
So we're not filtering right on we're just bringing them in and seeing who sticks against the wall, okay? So better rush process, okay?
I'm going to bring in the garnet building, and that's some budget items that we need in your budget process out there. There's not a lot of good key points.
So it's not necessarily that not having the garnet and gold is the end of the world, but it's a pretty strong reflection that these guys don't have a common set of values. The only values these guys have clearly around social. We like throwing great parties, we like having the dudes in the chapter. Heard that story before?
Increase chapter attendance.
Increased chapter attendance, okay. We bucket that with apathy probably, okay.
Improve the house manager, focus on house cleanliness.
Improve the house manager, tell me more about that.
Well, they failed the health inspection each of the last 5 years, so obviously there's something wrong with how their house is operating. So if you get a better house manager, shore charts, things along those lines to help clean that up.
So 12-week pledge program, who do you think's cleaning the house? You think the actives are?
Hopefully not. No, I'm just kidding. All the way around.
Good. You got up for a lot of words the other day. I thought you were thinking better than that. I'll call you 1 second. I want to drill in on this point. It's a 12-week program, right? Probably means they're on the semester system and not the quarter system. When do you think the health inspection occurs? During the semester or in between terms? When did these guys get initiated? End of term? So there wasn't anybody left to clean the house each time the health inspector showed up, was there? Because the brothers were apathetic and thought it was the pledge's job, so we'll just wait for the next class. Well, that wasn't convenient with the health inspector coming in. So yeah, we need to do something around the culture as to who's responsible for the upkeep of the house.
Either rethink or create a risk management program that's effective.
So tell me more about the risk management program. Let's pop it up in here for you.
You see their chapter on probation on average once a year.
Okay.
There's some lack in
Yeah.
your risk management.
Yeah, it's kind of what we were role-playing yesterday about, if you're doing all the right things and you're winning awards, you can pretty much party almost as hard as you want, anytime you want, because you've built up so much good capital that you're actually extending in that situation. Now, I'm not advocating going out and throwing a rager every week, but what else? Yes?
Increased relations with alumni, national team,
So increase relations with alumni. So folks are coming through a 12-week program. We're weeding out a third of the guys. They come into the chapter, they're apathetic. What makes us think that the alumni are going to give a damn?
I'm pretty sure the alumni are going to want to come back and not see a chapter anymore. So
Good point. Yeah.
I think the treasurer needs to be spoken to about financial issues and the budget's not working very well. Probably looking for money elsewhere.
Yep. Well, they're blowing it on parties, clearly. This is probably a chapter where they don't want to throw somebody out for not paying their dues because they're a brother, and that isn't nice. So yeah, there's a consultant walking into this chapter. They'd actually, that's when they call headquarters. They call Scott and say, this isn't a 3-day visit. I need to stay for a week. Yeah.
If I won't be alumni, I'd say I create a alumni advisory board.
Okay. Is that something that the chapter is going to be able to do, or is that something you're probably going to want to get headquarters involved with?
Work with headquarters.
Yeah, I'd take advantage of that one, guys. All right, so we got a whole bunch of goals. If we get a consensus here, let me take a step back. So we've got a whole string of goals here, right? I think we've got a pretty good handle actually on the realities of the situation. So you're on the exec for this chapter. You've got a consultant coming in, sitting down with you for 3, 4, 5 days. What are our options? And these are the realities. Yep.
I'd say a good place to start would be increasing the amount of J-boarding that happens with apathetic members who don't go to required events and go to do things that aren't with type values.
Okay, implementing a J-board. Yep.
Along with that, setting up some kind of financial policies to keep members in check with dues.
Yep, set some type of a clear standard that everybody's agreed to. Okay.
Cut down the length of your new member education period down to less than 8 weeks.
Okay, so it comes down to 8 weeks or less. So how much of this, is it a function of time, or are we dealing with a content issue?
I think that it's probably when you're having a member education period that long, it's hard to keep guys fired up for joining.
No.
After you get the applicant coming in. So just don't let them come down from the high of joining.
It's also going to force the actives who live in to deal with the house issue too. They don't have slave labor for as long. What else? Yeah.
I think the 12-week pledge period really affects retention rate because, if these, first year college students come in with a 12-week program and fail out the first semester, they're probably not coming back.
Yeah. Okay.
Gets a good capital to the university by being more involved and collaborative and get discussed.
I actually, that's a really good one. Look, Greek advisors, some are outstanding, some are mediocre. They've been there more than 20 years because, something's wrong with them. If you've got a good Greek advisor, I actually had a really good one when I went back as an advisor for my chapter. We partnered beautifully. It kept us out of so much hot water because he was actually invested in our future. What else? It's good. Yeah.
Improve the new member education program.
All right, so he was talking about cutting it down to 8 weeks. What goes into that?
Well, more pride and more, definitely obviously handle the garnet and gold. I personally don't see a problem with it being that long. I think you can keep guys fired up if you do consistently do things
Yeah.
and consistently teach in depth the garnet and gold.
Yeah, philosophically, I used to very much agree with you. It really didn't matter what the length was. From experience, I would tell you guys that if you go longer than 8 weeks, the problem is that creates enough time for all sorts of bad habits to creep in, and then you wake up 4 years later. The worst case, you get some guy who's ex-military, comes into the chapter and actually knows how to drill people, and starts drilling them and implementing all sorts of physical hazing, and then when that guy graduates, people who've never been in the military then take it over, and the whole thing just spirals out of control. I've seen that over and over and over. That's where hazing actually started, was people coming back from war. That was how they knew to build discipline, because that's what they had been taught. They had gone through basic training. So, not necessarily, we're not a military organization, so it doesn't really belong. All right, yeah.
Improve the content and quality of your chapter meeting.
Okay. All right, what would you do in that space?
So for our chapter, you can kind of tell that there wasn't much structure in the meeting.
Yeah.
You know that some people are better visual learners and more participative, so we got a PowerPoint and
That's
had
pretty
dates and
cool.
stuff on the PowerPoint so people were kind of more involved and the meeting was more structured. And got pizza too.
You got pizza? Yeah, having the Brother of the Week and, you know, the A-Hole of the Week awards, those always add some fun into it. Yeah.
Take the time and effort when executive elections come up to
Yeah.
vote for the individuals who really will take your chapter somewhere instead
Yeah.
of going for the comic relief in the crowd and voting for him as popularity.
Do you think these chapter meetings are member-driven, or do you think that they're probably executive officer-driven? Yeah. Whatever's going on, the executive officer's probably been trained or just grown up under the, we set the agenda and hopefully people follow along and we have to twist our arms into doing it instead of trying to figure out how to get the members to come up with the ideas. So we were talking yesterday about starting to plant a bunch of little fires around the chapter to get ideas. That's not going on here. All right, so you're going back to the chapter from this meeting. What would you do? What would be the first thing that you need to do? Yeah.
I mean, I personally think that if you overhaul the new education,
Okay.
start from the bottom up, the guys are going to come in, you get them pumped up, you're going to then, it's going to take it's going to be a long-term process, but you start from the ground up, the guys in 2 or 3 years when they come in and not get FedEx, then you're going to be able to get them pumped up, not having these big parties, cleaning the house, things like that. So I think universal education would be the starting point.
Okay.
I didn't touch on that. I mean, from personal experience in my chapter, it's amazing what one good pledge class can do.
Yes.
And one good pledge class can turn literally the entire chapter around.
Okay, so the option you guys are hearing being described here is, all right, we're going to have a good rush, which we're generally pretty stellar at. We're going to overhaul how they're educated. We're going to try and get one stellar class through here and move them up in the leadership ranks quickly. Now, that's a great option, particularly if you're looking at the chapter and saying, there's no way in hell we're ever going to get these guys to buy into change. These guys are just beyond redemption on that space. Let's say you don't think they are beyond redemption. Let's say you actually think, it is a good brotherhood, it's just lost its basic core principles. What would you guys do in that situation? What's your option there? Yeah.
I think not having the new member education program shows that the actual actives aren't educated in their own fraternity. So maybe a continuing education might be smart.
Okay. Yep. What else could you do? Yep.
I would probably just start with the Locking Brotherhood then.
I like that.
Sit down.
Retreat.
Yep. Sit down, get everybody together, just talk it out.
If you guys think that you got a chapter that's apathetic, but you think they really get the brotherhood, you think that deep down they want this to be more, it's just nobody's shown them the light. Having some type of a brotherhood weekend, locked in a retreat, something where you guys go through a values exercise and ask the questions we started with yesterday. What does this mean to you? What do you guys want this to be? Now, you sit there and say, oh my God, but what if they decide that we should just be a social partying fraternity? Is that any worse than what you have right now? If you're in this chapter. Could you make it any worse by having a retreat, if this is the situation? You might be able to. I mean, it could be that they turn around and say, screw you, and they throw you out of the house, but I seriously doubt it, because then nobody's going to actually be the responsible one. In these situations, they elect people to be responsible for them so that they don't have to be. And it's really actually kind of unfair, because they're taking advantage of you as the officer in that situation. It's kind of a one-directional brotherhood in that case. Your good outcome, though, on having this type of retreat is if you can get them centered on what the core values of the chapter should be and what it really stands for, beyond being popular, beyond having great social events, then all of a sudden that becomes the nucleus, that becomes your charge to be able to question everything else. Well, if this is what we want it to stand for, then why are we educating our pledges this way? well, if this is what we stand for, then why aren't we taking care of our house? Well, if this is what we all want it to become, why are we accepting that half the people aren't paying their bills? Now you've gone from having to tell them, here's what we're going to do in order to survive, to, hey, you said that this is what we want it to be. If that's the case, these things don't match up. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Truly though, what if they do say they want to be a totally social fraternity?
Then when you get into the line of questioning that we got into yesterday. All right, so let's role play this one. I won't put you on the spot. Pick on Tyler. All right, Tyler. You're the guy who wants this thing to be a social fraternity. Why don't you want to do any of this?
Because I joined the chapter to party and hang out with chicks.
All right. And we still get to hang out with chicks because we haven't lost our house. But we haven't had a party in 3 months now. We don't get to for another 2 months because we keep getting in so much trouble. How often do you want to be throwing parties?
I thought we'd do it like every weekend.
Well, we get to go out every weekend, but we haven't had a real rage or fight on it in a long time. So what do you think we need to do about it?
I guess we gotta do something with girls somehow.
Okay? And you're doing something with the girls every night. I watch them come out the fire escape the next morning. But we're not getting the party. This may be what you run into. Anybody else have any suggestions? Yeah.
Well, when we did our chapter, probably the opposite of the guys, just went out there and made basically a presentation to inform them we just want the social aspect. This is what we have to do, get the money, get the talent, know the good parties. You have to have the police, you have to be a well-rounded fraternity. That's just more girls meeting, more things we're doing. That leads to a better social life.
You might see some guys in the retreat coming along with this, right? They might roll with it. They may do exactly what Tyler just did. If the chapter as a whole does what Tyler just did, then you have to go with the pledge class. You have to say, all right, who are the core leaders of this chapter who are actually on board with this concept? We're taking over. And we'll keep those guys entertained because that's all they care about. He's probably not going to put too much energy into getting in my way. Because he's just said, I don't want this to be anything else. I'm going to be lazy. So, okay, if you don't want it to be anything else, what do you care what we're doing over here with the pledges? You may be able to lay it out in that way. But if you're asking the right questions, you get them to realize this thing could be a lot more. So anyway, what are some of the goals that you guys have come up with over the past 2 days? What are some big goals that you're wanting to take back to your chapter, setting this scenario aside? Yeah.
To have a general better respect for the house.
Okay, better respect for the house, so accountability.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's start a new one on this.
Establish a more fluid relationship with the alumni.
More fluid relationship with the alumni. Okay.
What we figured is that one of our biggest challenges is students. So it's just like, whether it's on campus, how you dress, or like just being at different things. So we're trying to implement like a mandatory 4 hours at different sororities and everything, like, just because it gets ourselves out and it gets our name out there and it just shows people that we actually.
Okay, so you guys have the perception of being lazy sloths. Yeah, all right. Okay, I get that. Yeah.
Better communication with our checkers and somehow.
Yeah, you guys have a unique, you know what when they are introducing the Chapter A and Chapter B, these guys from Kettering, they literally have 2 different schools. Some people go to the A program, some people go to the B program. So we have 2 chapters that have the same house, but don't even know each other. They just sort of hand the house off to each other every 8 weeks. 12 weeks, that's right, they extended it out. Yeah.
Improve transitions.
What's that?
Improve transitions.
Improved transition. So we got accountability, we got alumni, we've got general management of the chapter is what you're describing. What else?
Increase chapter attendance.
Okay. Reduced apathy.
Financial accountability.
Financial accountability is a big goal coming out of this. Okay.
win with everything and increase our Greek life market share.
Okay? What do you mean by Greek life market share?
I mean, we're selling ourselves essentially on the market.
Okay?
For girls, for positions of leadership, for power, and to do so, we have to win and win philanthropy, community service, be at the forefront of all activities, and have the fight brand be out there more so than any other chapter.
Okay, so you laid out a vision. What's going to be really tough for you guys when you go back to the chapter and turn that into actual goals that people can work through. But you're at the right starting point. You're just going to have to take it a level deeper. Give you some coaching there. Yeah.
One thing that I think we should work on is, establish a better disciplinary system for those who
Okay.
don't necessarily.
Yeah. So back to the accountability issue. Okay. What else? I can't believe we got this far without it coming up.
Have accountability based off our new constitution and get the largest class state.
Okay. So accountability based off of their new constitution and largest pledge class that they've ever had. I can't believe we got this far before Rush came up. Rush is huge. This problem is solved by a good Rush and a good new pledge program. Financial problems are solved by a good Rush. Your social progress is solved by a good Rush. Talent, talent, talent. In the corporate world, it's all about talent. Having the best people that you can on your team. Got the right people on the bus and the wrong people off the bus. Okay, what else? Yeah.
Create a risk awareness program.
With risk awareness?
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
Focus on public relations.
PR?
Have a great face. Face is going along with marketing yourselves.
Yeah.
Face is big, not only to just the girls, just the stores, everything like that, but to the community, how you live in, to the school itself. That's why you're there first.
Okay.
You focus on those. Focus on the general aspect of how you guys look and everything that you have to do to get there, between philanthropy, community service, holding socials, helping out. It all comes together that way.
It's funny, the different things that you guys are tossing out here, you can kind of tell where the chapter is in terms of its performance. You guys are probably close. Did you have an excellence award this year?
This was the first year in 3 years we didn't get one.
No.
We got two the past 2 years.
You got it in the past 2 years? So you guys have a culture of getting excellence awards normally. So you're talking about something that's, generally something. A chapter that's in crisis or is struggling, PR isn't necessarily the first thing they're going to come up with. They're going to come up with rush, they're going to come up with accountability, they're going to come up with combating apathy. You get into, hey, PR is one of our big issues. It's usually an indicator that you guys are pretty far along. And alumni is a huge issue too. You guys are dealing with it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to practice going back to the chapter. We're going to put you in the environment you're going to be in with your brothers. Whether you start with just the executive committee or whether you start with a broader group of the chapter. When you set up retreats, per Ray's comments yesterday, don't make them mandatory. If you want to have a voice, you show up. If you want your brothers to decide for you, you don't show up. That's their decision. They're adults. Let them make the decision. But if they don't show up to the retreat, then they need to honor what the retreat came up with because they just advocated their ability to speak, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to break into 4 different groups. I know it's a large room, but this will get you up on your feet. This is going to get you guys working. This is a precursor to when you're in your regional breakouts later this afternoon, where you're going to be with the guys from your area. And you're probably going to have more common culture. You're probably going to have some more common issues. And the idea is we want you to be able to walk out of there knowing each other, knowing how to work with each other, and having somebody you can pick up the phone and call and leverage when you go back to the chapter. And you got all these exciting ideas, and the rest of the group is sitting there going, yeah, okay, that's great. I'm glad you had a fun time in Memphis. Go away. We're just going to go back to party. So, why don't we take that over there, and my thought is each of us read out what their scenario is. You guys, we're going to let you vote with your feet. We're going to have 4 different topics to work on. If there are more than one of you from your chapter, don't go to the same station. Split up, go to different stations. But you guys are going to work together through the GROW model on what the goal should be for that chapter, what realities are they dealing with. Again, that should only be 20% of the time. What your options are, that should be the bulk of your time, and then try and figure out what the way forward is, and then we're going to report back to the group. Okay? So, Scott, do you want to read out your scenario first?
I will. Okay, my scenario is regarding management. We're going to be working with the Psi Beta chapter of the University of North America. Psi Beta is currently in a rut. They have members in the key leadership roles, i.e. SMC, recruitment VPs, social, etc. But many of the less popular roles are either not filled or one member serves in multiple roles. It's not uncommon that the SMC or VPs end up doing a majority of the labor because their chairman lack the knowledge or motivation to get things done. The chapter frequently cancels events due to lack of planning, attendance, and execution. That's the scenario that we're working with over here.
So if that resonates with your chapter at all, send a member over to this one. What do you got? So Ray's in the back corner over there.
All right, so I'll be in the back corner, so we'll be dealing with risk management. So, Psi Tau chapter at Ocean Southwest College and State University. We really created up over there in headquarters. Psi Tau chapter was recently rechartered after a closure in 1980 for poor performance and financial issues. Since the rechartering in 2008, the chapter has been experiencing a change in the philosophy of how it should operate. Part of the reason behind this change is the majority of the founding fathers of the chapter have graduated. Due to this departure and the lack of the transition provided by the former leaders of the chapter, the current members have no desire to continue having sound operations as they once did. They are satisfied with their past successes, but believe that to be a top-tier fraternity, they must now place a large emphasis and financial support on being the most socially active on campus. This belief has caused the chapter, which was once reveled by the university, to engage in behavior that has resulted in repeated university and international fraternity violations. The chapter is now at risk of being suspended from campus. So I know this says rechartering, but you can also apply this to your chapter if you had a group of older guys, juniors, seniors, who turned around the chapter and are about to graduate. Same concept.
We'll do recruitment back here. We're going to be at the Sigma Rho chapter, cleverly named the South Harmon Institute of Technology. We have a 40-man chapter. There are 10 fraternities on campus and 5 sororities. Sigma Rho chapter has struggled with recruitment for a number of years, currently ranking 7th out of the 10 fraternities on campus. The university has an open rush policy, and the chapter typically brings in 8 to 10 new members a semester. The largest fraternity on campus sits at 110 members, with the average chapter size at 62.
All right, over here we have the Upsilon Pi chapter at Blue Mountain State. 83 members, 15 fraternities on campus, 10 sororities. All right, Upsilon Pi chapter is currently dealing with several accountability issues. Members are late on paying dues, if at all. Items in the house are constantly being either broken or stolen, and members getting busted for alcohol-related offenses are the norm. The chapter's current strategy for holding members accountable is issuing fines, which often don't get paid, and revoking social privileges, which no one has the balls to enforce. Overall, the attitude within the chapter is dismal. Everyone knows that accountability is the issue, but no one seems to be willing to step up and hold their brothers accountable.
By the way, hint on that one, negative ramifications usually don't work. Nobody wants to be a dick to their brother, so they don't enforce them. You got to reserve the negative stuff, like you don't get to party and you don't get to go to this or that for really extreme scenarios. Otherwise, they just get apathetic on you. All right, so you get to vote now. These are all topics that you guys just listed out as being things that you're thinking about making goals for your chapter. This is your opportunity to actually think through, how am I going to take this back to my chapter and get them to buy in? This is the first step in making this thing real, so you're able to affect change, be a leader in your chapter. So we're going to take the next 30 minutes, vote with your feet, pick a section, and you guys are going to work through this together. Ready?
Like a lot of people.
Alright guys, let's go ahead and wrap these.